On a date like this one, in 1993, my mother went to rest forever. This is a tribute to her. I've had several tributes to her, but today I feel that it should be an appreciation to a very few people who were connected to her. If today I were to talk about people who talk positively about my mother, I would spend a week and I would not even have covered a fraction of them. I've always, to many men, if you are to tell a man that he is like his mother, usually that one is treated as an abuse. And if you tell a man that he is like his father, it is treated as a praise. But to me and my siblings, we have always been happy when people say, do what your mom used to do. Because as I've already said, my father was not popular and my father had a lot of failings. But you'd spend a week trying to find a fault with my mother. She was an angel. Actually, up to the time of recording this, I've only found one person who has criticized my mother, whom, according to what she was saying, my mother was evil. Every time she would talk about the evil, she had never talked anything positive about my mother, and that is my stepsister. Of course, she got married when we were very young, because she got married when I was in primary 5. So I am not in a position to say what type of a stepmother my mother was to her. But according to her, my mother was the worst stepmother to ever have lived. There are occasions when my mother was still alive, I would go and talk to my mother about what my stepsister had said. But my mother was that type of a person who would tell you that me, I did my part and I've moved on. So she never answered that, and life continued. But recently, about 5 or so years ago, my stepsister continued talking, and I shared that with Martin Nalianya Natembea, and then he just said, Martin Nalianya Natembea is a cousin, and my mother is the one who brought him up. His mother and my father were siblings. So when I told him, he just told me, if your stepsister continues talking about her relationship with your mom, I'll be compelled to spill the beans. I passed that information to my stepsister, and from that day, she has never talked anything about my mother, whether ill or nice or anything. My mother just disappeared. I think this is a situation where you hate somebody so much that you have nothing good to say, but since you are gagged, because Martin Nalianya Natembe had said if she continues saying, then he will give the true picture of what happened. Then she felt it is better to let my mother rest in peace. Today is not about my mother. Today it's about a few people who complimented my mother in her death. The greatest of them, he is number 7, he is number 6, he is number 5, he is number 4, he is number 3, he is number 2, and he is number 1. That one is Paul Washira Kareithi, my uncle. If I were to tell you the ideal parent in this world, maybe one day I'll tell him to write a book on how to be an ideal parent and an ideal leader. My uncle, I celebrate him when he's still alive and well. As of the time of recording this, he was healthy and well, and I have to celebrate him while he is alive. He has stood with us anytime. There is no time, be it at night, be it over day, be it abrupt. We never give him. Of course, my mother had two brothers. The other one died the other day, Uncle James Nguyo Mwangi. But Uncle James Nguyo Mwangi is, when he was alive, he's that kind of a person who talked what he felt that he was supposed to talk. But Uncle Paul Washira is the person who, especially when you are just one-on-one, he'd let you say what is in your heart. This is the type of a person who says, okay, at the back of your head, no, I'm your mother's brother, but tell me what is in your feelings and whatever. And he would give you the correct answer and whatever. Even if I have something disturbing me today, and I went and talked to him. Other people, I usually have 3 people. I look for 3 people so that I make a decision based on 2 versus 1. But if I happen to meet my uncle and we talk one-on-one, usually it ends there. There's another time we were talking, and you see there is this challenge that we usually have, we whose parents are from two different tribes and cultures. Among my father's people, the Luhya, when you talk to somebody and tell him, you are the custodian of my mother's grave, where to a Luhya that is an appreciation of the highest, almost like a CGH. So if your parent or somebody dear to you is buried in, say, my land, you come and tell me, hey bwana, I respect you because wewe unachunga kaburi ya baba yangu, unachunga kaburi ya ndugu, something like that. So I remember one time telling my uncle, wewe ndio unachunga kaburi ya mamangu. But him being a Kikuyu retorted back and told me, kwani uliambiwa mtu anaweza iba hiyo kaburi? That is some of the things we have to face if you belong to 2 cultures. When I'm in Lugulu, Webuye, I have to be a perfect Bukusu, and when I'm in Rogoro, Karatina, I have to behave a pure Kikuyu. So we have to change that and we have to appreciate. I want to pass my appreciation to my uncle for being there. Let God pay you. Another person I want to appreciate was he's now dead, Joseph Nasongo Mulanda. Mulanda and Lando were step brothers. But in African tradition, those were brothers and sons of brothers. Joseph Nasongo Mulanda, his father and my father were step brothers. I remember when we went and buried my mother in Karatina, when I met him on the road, he stood, greeted me, looked at me, and he just said one thing. I won't repeat it in vernacular because 5% of you do understand my vernacular language, but he said the mother who used to welcome people. And he was talking with a lot of emotion, as if something was, something was blocking his neck or something. He talked with emotion and said, the mother who used to welcome people is gone. And then he rested his head on my right chest and cried, and my shirt was wet with his tears. It happened a long time ago. He even later died, but I still appreciate him. I'm strong because of his action. Later on, I met his wife, who is now his widow. She's still alive and well and healthy, Grace Mulanda, and she repeated the same, that the lady who used to welcome people open-handedly is no more. There is, I would want to say that this list will contain very few people from the Kikuyu lineage, because according to Kikuyu, immediately somebody is buried, they move on. But among Luhya, so long as the person who has died, her kids or his kids and the grandkids are there to be seen, they still mourn. Especially like my mother, who was never buried in Luhya land. I told the Luhyas that one day, God willing, God giving me money, I'd hire a minibus, like a city hopper, collect about 32 people, take them to my mother's grave in Karatina, so that they cry and wail on her grave. But then, most of those people who are 32, I think if I'm to count them, I'd be lucky if I reached 12. So the issue has come and gone. We will live by that. So among the Luhyas, there is a lady who was called Kwam Masava. Kwam Masava, and then there is another lady called Julia. She was my mother's, those two are my mother's best friend. Whenever my mother would want to make any serious decision, she would cross the river to the north, River Osorongai, go to Kwamasava, discuss with her. Then from there, she would cross the river on the west, River Luandeti, and go and meet Julia Wora. After discussing with them side by side, then she would have a discussion with herself and come up with a solution. Those are two of the people whom had promised among the 32, but they have also followed her. When Kwamasava became a friend to my mother, when she became we were not related, but later her stepdaughter got married to Morris JI-TENGE. And to cut a long story short, is that she became a sort of mother-in-law to me. And according to Luya, you don't greet your mother-in-law. But when I went back after burying my mother, she hugged me. We cried as if she's an aunt to me. And that was when the idea came that I have to organize for a city hopper to take people there. Of course, later she followed her best friend. And I want to pay credit to her. Her own daughter, Snandie, when Snandie was still young, she would spend weekends at our place, and she would sleep with my mother on my parents' bed. And when her stepsister got married to Morris Makoha JI-TENGE, there was that challenge where people were saying she should not continue sleeping on that bed because that was her parents-in-laws. But my mother said no, she has always been sleeping there. And as I've said, we people who have parents from two different cultures, we have always that challenge. My mother, after separating with my father, went to stay in Mombasa. Snandie also ended up in Mombasa, and she got married. And during her wedding, her mother was supposed to go, like any mother who's overseeing her daughter. But Kwam Masava was gracious enough to say that Snandie had two mothers, and the other mother, that is my mother, should represent her. And when Snandie was getting married in Mombasa, my mother was treated as though she was her biological mother. Imagine, that privilege was not given to her mother. That privilege was not given to the sisters to her mother. And I want to appreciate Kwam Masava. The other lady is Julia Wora. Wara and my father were first cousins. Muchuma, the father to Warrior, and Hwatenge were brothers, siblings. She was my mother, and she felt it. And a lot of Luhya people feel that there are so many things of somebody who dies and is buried elsewhere, or whose body is never found, and my mother is supposed to do that. But you see, we sat down as Lando's children and decided that now Lando is gone, and the three ladies, the Maragoli lady, Mama Rosa, she left 3 kids, 2 boys, 2 sons and 1 daughter. The Kikuyu lady Lucia, she left 6 kids, 3 girls, 3 daughters, 3 sons. And Anne Haveri Atiriki, who died without a kid, we decided that there is the closing ceremony of the Luhya. We decided that at an appropriate time and using the appropriate Luhya tradition, we will do a joint. Nowadays they call it collabo. We are going to do a collabo between Lando and the 3 ladies. When it is ready, according to the Luhya tradition, especially the Northern Luhya, Bukusu, Kabras, Tachoni, Bunyala, it has had to happen on an odd number. So most probably, it will happen in either 2025 or 2027, or even 2029. But we had decided that we'll do a collabo, a closure ceremony for Lando and the 3 ladies. Thank you.